Thank you.
Thanks very much. I worked at Crop and Food in Lincoln for 8 years and set up the GE Onion program there. Around this time, the first GE food, the Flavour Saver tomato, engineered only with its own DNA, made it to the US market. This was after rats fed on these GE tomatoes developed lesions in their stomachs. The bill would mean New Zealand having the most extreme combination in the world of organisms that can be gene engineered or edited. I'm going to use the term GE to include all gene technologies. Most GE crops in the world are grown as monocultures. Years of growing crops engineered with herbicide resistance and insecticidal toxins have resulted in herbicide-resistant weeds and insects resistant to the toxins. GE crops are about ownership of patented DNA. Such patents deny farmers the right to save seeds. This bill favours patents and the money they might make, but ignores the voice of farmers and consumers. There's no demand for GE food here or from overseas. Claims about possible benefits of GE are not a reason to destroy our country's thriving non-GMO export industry. Only 20 out of 195 countries have relaxed their gene tech laws. The rest still currently have strict regulations. We've been told that crops that are gene edited by SDN1 and SDN2 processes are equivalent to conventionally bred crops and should be exempt from regulation. However, the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services says that SDN1 and 2 can create outcomes with no known equivalents in conventional breeding. Non-GE crops are leading the way in terms of yield, pest and disease resistance, and tolerance to drought and salinity. Sound management of soil, crop, and animal health also supports high yields and pest and disease resistance. That's why organic agriculture focuses on healthy soil biology. GE crops, animals, and microbes can produce toxins, allergens, and anti-nutrients. Research has shown that GE crops fed to lab animals have caused disturbing effects, including organ damage, cancerous lesions, and damage to the immune and reproductive systems. Sadly, it can be career suicide to publish on the harmful effects of GE foods. Scientists doing this work have often lost their jobs or their research funding because results are inconvenient for industry. The potential for harm with GE soil microbes is even greater than for GE crops or animals because microbes share genetic material with each other much more readily. Containment would be near impossible. The precision of gene editing doesn't mean it's safe. Small changes in genes can be just as devastating as large changes. It's easier and faster to edit genes, but it's also to cause harm, and this makes regulation much more essential. Those doing GE work may have little or no expertise in risk assessment. We have a scientist in New Zealand who is an international expert on the biosafety of GMOs. Why was he not consulted in the drafting of this bill? Coexistence of GE and non-GE crops is not possible if they produce pollen or seed. Wind, insects, and birds will always transport pollen and seed. That's their job in nature. Medical gene therapies. The bill says that the minister can mandate medical gene therapies, including synthetic modified mRNA injections. Meanwhile, in the USA, 9 states are in the process of legislating a ban on all mRNA injections. Injected mRNA can genetically engineer human DNA through the enzyme reverse transcriptase and through synthetic bacterial plasmid DNA, a contaminant in manufacturing. Another very important contaminant, very concerning contaminant, is the SV40 promoter and enhancer, known to promote the growth of cancer tumours. SV40 genetic material has been found in some Pfizer batches. Published research and clinical data have documented adverse effects caused by the COVID mRNA injections, including inflammation, blood clots, damage to the blood vessels and immune system, and much more. The mRNA injection did not stop infection or transmission, and COVID was always treatable with effective therapeutics. Article 6, Section 3 of the Nuremberg Code states that no government can mandate or force medical treatment without individual consent. My concluding remarks: we have an easy solution available, and it is to update the Has No Act. Questions on how to regulate or prohibit any gene technologies to reduce risk require open, transparent, and honest debate involving all sectors of society. Thank you.
That was spot on 5 minutes, Elvira. You're the first person to ever do that. But also thank you very much for your presentation.
Pleasure.
Very thoughtful and considered for your care in this area. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you too. You too.
Well, it's a shame there was no chance for questions there.
I stopped my submission to give him time for questions, but he didn't ask any anyway.
Oh, far out. So no one in the committee was interested in asking you for questions.
No, didn't happen with me either.
Gee, maybe you're just making too much sense in the information that's been said in there, which means it gives them very little to commentate on.
Well, Elvira made an awful lot of sense. I mean, it's quite hard to pick up everything when she's at 1.5 going quite fast. Yes, I was picking up particularly about the soil microbes and GE and the chemicals that they use with GE destroys the soil microbes. And so then you have to continue doing the same thing, because nature can't do its own thing, which it normally does in regenerative farming or organic farming.
That makes, as you say.
So it's a bit like farmers that are using phosphorus all the time as well. They're in a trap now because they can't not use it.
Yeah, or if they do try to get out of it, it could take them, 10+ years to get out of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hey, well, the next submitter on my list is Dying Downward. So let's see what.
Before we go there, I had another couple of little points, if you like.
Go ahead.
I wrote down risk assessment, because what isn't sufficient in this gene technology bill is the risk assessment. And it's just being shoved, the bill's being shoved through really fast, and they're missing things that really needs to happen. We have to have really strict risk assessment. I mean, because you can't go back with genetic engineering, you can't turn back the clock.
No.
Once it's out, it's out. So you've got to have incredibly tight risk assessment for that. Pollens and seeds, I wrote down, well, yes, we know that they travel. And as we said at the beginning of the show, and bees will be involved in that.
And I hope, like hell, this doesn't damage our Manuka honey industry.
Well, it will.
Yeah.
It will, totally. A whole lot of businesses, yeah. And then she talked about the mRNA vaccines. Now, I have not been impressed with the behavior of the anti-vax movement, not at all. But I do think that there is a point about that mRNA, how does it affect us? And, when they're doing vast numbers of vaccines, you can always have ones that have mistakes in them.
Typhoid was a big one that happened in New Zealand. It'll be back probably in your era, but that was one of the ones where a bad batch of a typhoid vaccine ended up causing quite a lot of harm to some people, but in turn it led to a big mass push to get vaccinated.
I think that was probably before I arrived in New Zealand.
Okay.
I had to be vaccinated against smallpox to be allowed to come.
Yes.
So before we got on the ship to come here, I had to have a vaccine passport. So when everybody was screaming out about vaccines passports, and I was saying, well, I've had one already.
Yeah, and I mean, if we go onto my records on Manage My Health, or well, the successor version that my medical practice uses, it does show the vaccines that I had when I was a baby. It does show the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine when I was about 10. It shows the tetanus vaccine when I was about 12. So there's the whole list of all of that is all on there.
Yeah.
So
my youngest son, who's the same age as you, he had a whooping cough vaccine, which was a bad batch.
Oh.
And he was ill on and off for a year.
Ooh.
And the only reason I knew it was a bad batch was because the doctor's receptionist told me, and she got into major trouble with the doctor for telling me.
Oh.
But he was having pneumonia, kidney infections, everything from age 1 till 2. It was absolutely terrible.
It is not fun.
So, and it's very hard to be sympathetic towards vaccines when you've had a bad batch like that.
Exactly.
Kids are under-vaccinated now.
Yeah, exactly. That is so true. Okay, let's move on to our next submitter.
One other thing, though. She does say update the HASNO Act, and that is important. But I don't know the details of HASNO, so I can't expand on that. And that was my other thing I wrote down that she mentioned.
Okay, let's kick off.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook.